Oh, 30 years today is this month, is the Cake Bible's birthday.
Oh, wow.
Congratulations, that's
And
wonderful.
it's just going to the 55th printing, so name a book of Bible, or at least be the first one to, because now everybody else has
Right.
them. And God takes care of you, I guess. But think, what was, and I've lost track what I was saying about.
Step by step and how you go
Oh,
to the first
yeah,
one.
well, the second thing that I like thank you most about this book is that I wrote the recipes the way in which I actually bake. You know, many times I'll go into the kitchen, I'm about to start something, I think, where do I begin? This has the mise en place, which means the advanced
heard of that
preparation.
before?
That's how they do it in France. And so now, when I go to start a recipe, I only want to bake from it this way. I'd like to redo all of my books, except that it will take another 2 lifetimes to do it and have all those step by step. But also because we have the photographs of the steps, the text can be shorter and more streamlined. And the funniest thing is that when we get reviews, several people have mentioned recipes that already exist in my other books, and they don't realize it. They say, this recipe is so much easier than her other recipes because they perceive it differently that way. And of course, there's a lot of new things. And anything that was done before has probably been tweaked, because every time we do something, we find a little extra thing, not necessarily to do, but to say about it to make sure it succeeds.
Right. That's what I love about this book. If you haven't gotten a copy yet, or you'll get one later, this is step by step. But I'm a baker. I'm a cook and a baker. And I've been going through Rosie's book since I got it, and I was going to make several recipes, but life got in the way. So I looked at the chocolate chip cookies. I said, everybody likes chocolate chip cookies, and they're easy to eat here. So I said, that looks like a lot of steps. It wasn't. It's just so nicely laid out for you. And like yesterday, I browned the butter and toasted the walnuts, put them in a container, and I could make them this morning. So this book is really special that way. Anybody, even someone who's an old baker like me, can find something new, you know, and be able to follow the recipe.
And you know what's nice about having the brown butter is you can make it ahead. It will keep for months in the refrigerator, or not brown it, just clarify it.
Right.
And then you can use it to saute. Recipes that say recooking say to use part oil, part butter when you're using butter. That's to prevent the butter from browning, from burning. But when you clarify the butter, the milk solids in it don't brown. Don't burn.
I almost didn't want to use it for the recipe because it smelled so good.
Well,
But now it's so easy. I'm going to do a bunch of it.
make them out
We should
water.
comment too.
And the whole house smelled great too.
Because some of the recipes are from prior books too, but revised. If you look at the ingredient chart, don't get thrown. Like, wait a minute, what wasn't here was down here. It's been moved to the top because of the mise en place. So,
Yeah, because the rule is you don't get awards from James Beard or ISCP if the recipes aren't written in the exact order they appear in the index, which sometimes forces a kind of weird formatting. Oh, but another thing, I'm the first person who ever put weights in a book, and I credit my publisher, my editor, Marie Warren Shelley, because she was fearless. She had the courage to do something that might have been off-putting, and also charts, which usually belong in a science book. And a lot of men approached the book in a more friendly way because it was a more understandable way for them to approach baking. So I finally won the battle. I think I wrote maybe 30 years ago an article in the LA Times called Way to Bake, W-E-I-G-H, about all the reasons why it's faster, easier, more accurate. And they let me do it. She let me do it if I put volume first, because that's how most people feel comfortable. Then ounces, and finally grams. And grams, of course, are the best way to do it. 2 books back, they let me put the ounces first, and now I don't have to have ounces at all. Evil ounces are out. Because an ounce, you usually, if you were going to put it in, you'd round it off to the nearest quarter ounce, because it would look weird to have like 1.6. But a quarter of an ounce is 7 whole grams, so that's the difference is. That's why I like grams, among other things.
A lot of bakers won't buy a book unless it's in weight.
Well, I'm really pleased to see that there's practically not a single baking book out now that does not have weight. And
Right.
when Erin McDowell is a very talented stylist, she did the styling for
Fearless
the full
baker,
page color book, because my editors insisted that we have full color pages as well as the steps. And I said, but we have finished pictures of everything. Why do we need that? I'm so glad that she insisted.
It's a beautiful book.
And Erin wrote a book, Fearless Baking, a year
The
ago.
Fearless, yeah.
And
That book is great too.
yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
I really love that. And so her book was about to be, she said, I'm putting weight before the ingredient. I thought that was kind of odd.
Yeah.
But, and she said in ounces, and I said, Erin, it's going to be outdated before it's published. Do me a favor and do grams. And she changed it, and she fought the battle. I'm so glad.
Well, that's why I weighed everything on my little handy-dandy scale, and I even doubled the recipe. Because sometimes when you double a recipe, you get problems. But I zeroed out and added the 116 grams of flour again, and they turned out perfect, I thought.
They look great.
First of all, tell us about a day when you're testing for a cookbook. I know you do a lot of testing, and you have a lot of your recipes are well tested. What's a day like in your kitchen?
Well, I was just going to say, though, that testing is one thing, but proofing is the other. You can test up the kazoo, and then they go and introduce mistakes, like, in the galleys, which go out to magazines that have to work ahead. They changed all the 2/3 cups in volume to 1/3. People who measure by volume serves them right, but
Let's get back
really.
Let's get back to testing.
Okay, testing.
Oh no! So
What's a day
I didn't even think about you proofing your own.
Well, the
I thought
way
that's
we
what
do
you
it
editors
is that
do.
I read it. Oh, yes, they do. And in fact, Maria, in the Cake Bible, she said you don't have to worry about proofing. You have excellent proofers. Whereas somebody told me to proof backwards. I couldn't do that. But what I did do, because Woody wasn't part of my life 30 years ago, was that I dictated the entire thing into a tape recorder and played it back against the person who retyped the manuscript and was being paid by the page. So it was filled with errors. And then at each new version, like the page proofs that they had, I forget what they were all called, but each one only corrected some of them until, do you remember Bert Green?
Yes.
He opened the first takeout store in the country in Amagansett, and he was a personality in the Good Morning LA show, I guess. And he said he and his associate, his partner, Philip, they would read back and forth to each other, and I said, well, I don't have a Philip. But he said, you must look at the blues. The blues were the final stage. And when I told the publisher and the editor that I needed to see the blues, they said, no, if you change a comma, it costs 50 cents. And I said, first of all, I'll pay. And second of all, I'm not asking you to fix something that I just found now. I'm asking you to fix something I found 3 generations back in the page proofs, maybe, that you still haven't done. But the funniest part is that my husband's a radiologist. And I said to him, how could they be missing it? I'm marking it. It's in kazoo. And he said, what are you using to mark it? There's a big black arrow. And then he said, what color for highlighting? And I said, red and green. And he said, maybe they're colorblind. Because a lot of radiologists are colorblind. That's how they can be a doctor. They don't have to diagnose skin color. So I didn't find out, I think, till my 6th book. Debbie Weiss-Jolene was originally the junior copy editor. Then she became senior. Then she went to Artisan Books. Then she became senior editor there. And then she ended up being the proofreader for one of my books. Just like, anyway, I said, Debbie, how do you suppose that they're missing this when I'm so clear in my marking? And she said, could it be that I photocopy what you do so that all the highlighting disappears, and then for the inputter I give the photocopied thing? And I said, I'm glad to know that because I'm going to give you credit in the book now, so when people write about mistakes, they can blame you instead of me. I was so incensed after all this effort, it was for nothing. But I have to say that my husband said that in medical books, there's a certain percentage of error, that all books have errors. There was not a single error in the Cake Bible. That was my great achievement. And maybe that's why people trust it. It's in every kitchen. Even it was seen in a submarine. It was also in Kathmandu. Probably because it has a few high altitude bits of advice. I mean, there's High in the Sky, Susan Purdy. Do you have her book? Where she actually went to every level, or at least several levels.
5 levels.
Okay, that's enough. I mean, it's better than I've never been to any level, except we did Praxi here in Denver, and then I had to find out if my hypotheses were correct.
Did they?
So up to a point, you really, there's nothing like the proof is in the pudding. You really have to do it.
Right.
And that's why I believe in testing. Cecily Brownstone, who was the editor of Associated Press for her entire career, and she was the one who made me go back to college to get my degree, and she said, never be a typewriter cook. And I said, well, what is that? And she said, somebody who thinks that if they type it up, they don't have to try it out. They know enough about the recipe. There are always surprises. I can look at a recipe and I don't know if something is wrong necessarily unless I actually make it. Maybe if it's lamb chops, I can tell. I mean, they say to use 2 pounds of pesto. I know that that's wrong. I know they meant 2 ounces or something. But with baking, it's too subtle. You don't know.
Yeah, so testing-wise, we tested. we do a recipe and it didn't seem quite right, well, do it again
And again,
and again.
and usually I get fed up nowadays, and he says, no, let's take it to the point of failure. Let's keep adding something until we see it doesn't work, and then we'll know that's the maximum.
Right.
So it's good.
Do you
So
have
when you ask what is a day like, actually, people imagine that we're in the kitchen all the time baking, but there's a lot of time spent at the computer.
Yeah.
In fact, he's constantly saying, get up and move, because it's not healthy to sit
No.
as much as we have to sit.
Right.
I'd rather be baking.
Yeah.
And in fact, usually when I'm having to sit and do something, I start with bread, because of all the baking that I do, I love making bread the most.
That was my question, so now we're...
Uh,
No. I am just starting bread. I'm going through modernist bread. That's my big...
Oh, I saw that on Facebook.
Yes, I did the bagels. I finally have good
Now
bagels.
you have to try my bagel. Actually, the bagels aren't in this book, it's in the bread Bible.
I bought all the books, so I'll try those. Let's see. What 3 recipes do you think every baker should know how to make? Maybe what 3 recipes in your book that you think, you know how you say someone should know how to roast chicken, someone should know how to do pasta so they can feed themselves. Just for, what are your 3?
So the problem is that there are 4 chapters in this book. So there's cakes,
What 4 recipes?
pies, bread, and cookies. Okay, I don't say that everyone should be able to bake bread. Although, when I went to University of Vermont and I saw this, in those days they were called beatniks, this guy mixing sourdough bread, and he said, you're not a woman until you can bake bread. And I thought, oh, so that's it, because at the age of 17 you're always wondering, how do you know you're not a girl anymore when you're a woman? Yeah. But I don't think everybody necessarily has to make
Was
bread.
he a Trump relative? I didn't say that.
Far
That-
from it. Birth to beatnik.
Too late.
I don't think Trump has ever touched a bread. Well, this is a whole other story.
Yeah, we won't go there.
Okay.
Sorry.
We won't get into Trump. But nowadays, with all the prevalence of really excellent bread and bakeries around the country, although Maria made me put baguettes in the bread Bible because she said some people in small towns can't get a good baguette.
Very
I
true.
don't think my baguette is the absolute best. The best one is the one in America's Test Kitchen. Wait, where did I see it? I tried it, and it really works. I mean, I didn't get as big a holes as they did. That's the big test. It's very zen. When I started making bread, my big goal was to get holes. Empty spaces was very hard to achieve. But I remember that my editor thought to herself, she didn't tell me, that who was I to bake, to be making the bread? It's just that I loved it so much. So she asked her husband, what does Rose know about bread? And John said, whatever she needs to know, she will find out. He was right. I deeply immersed myself. I made bread every day for years. I still have the starter that I made for the bread Bible that I feed every week. And before leaving, I gave it extra flour to make sure it survived.
I've killed several starters myself, but I'm going to try
You
again.
probably have more on your plate than I do. I mean, it's,
Right now.
all I do is bake and write about it.
Yeah.
And that's how, I mean, right now, we've just already submitted the next book. A week ago.
That's my other question. Wait a minute.
We'll
Don't
get
get
to that later.
It's easy to not let your
Oh,
bread
but I know
die.
you're working on something.
Yeah, we'll get that later.
Okay.
Okay, you're supposed to tell what the 4 recipes.
Oh, yeah,
Remember?
I do get off on tangents.
Okay, a bread, a cake, a pie, and a cookie.
Okay, what cake do
Chocolate
you
chip?
think?
Okay.
What-
Well, the cake, stop nudging. Wait.
No, I'm gonna keep nudging. Keep nudging.
I guess the basic yellow cake,
Yeah, why?
right? Because we can also make cupcakes from it, sheet cakes for parties. Does that answer your question? The why? Why you?
She's being double teamed, the poor
I
woman.
know.
Well, one advantage making the yellow cake is if it turns out right, then if you bake other cakes, you know your oven's correct.
That's true.
So it's a good,
Yeah,
it's a good platform cake to make,
yeah.
and also it's very versatile. So we'll say that's your.
See why I keep them around?
And what is your, like, baking, a Trollo assistant type? Yeah, that's what. I'm
Yeah.
asking, like, what, like, you do everything in the kitchen. And you help write recipes and you test recipes and.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry, because I don't think I.
Then I got it. Plus I drove her here.
Oh,
Yes, he was nice to me in New York. What if-
Plus you're the driver.
What?
I'm the driver too.
Oh, yeah. There are some things that, but there's a lot of things he does better than me, but there's some few things that I still do better than him, like bread, for example, right?
Yeah.
You haven't done much bread.
okay. We won't go with
Wait,
chocolate
okay.
chip cookies. I mean, what?
Yes, for cookies, at first I thought why do a chocolate chip cookie? Everyone has chocolate chip cookies and they're good. But then people said they wanted mine, so I started thinking about what I wanted in a chocolate chip cookie and how I wanted it to be chewy, but if it was water, it was going to be more cakey. And why not, instead of letting it sit overnight, or in addition to, why not get rid of the water by clarifying the butter? So I did a whole bunch of things to make it suit my taste. Also, I find that to my taste, there's too much salt. I don't want to taste salt in a cookie. I want it to be there to elevate the flavor, and also too much sugar. And it's very easy to make a chewy cookie if you have a lot of sugar.
Right.
But I don't want to taste just sugar. I want to taste the butter and the
I like
flour.
the golden syrup.
Oh,
I had that
yeah,
for
that's the
a couple
best
recipes
flavor.
from Australian book, and I thought, oh, I'm so glad I have it. I don't have to go out and find it. So
Or refiner sugar. Refined sugar.
It's called refined sugar, but it really comes
golden
into
syrup.
the golden syrup. And the reason it's still in this country, nobody was buying it. And I told them I would give them the recipe for the can free of charge if they would just keep it. And I gave them my pecan pie. And if ever you have a pecan pie made with golden syrup, you'd never have the cloying corn syrup again.
Oh, I have to try that.
Which
It's
is
a
in this
butterscotch.
book.
Oh, that's
It's in the book?
yeah.
Oh, because that's the pie recipe. The pecan pie.
No, it's not the pie recipe.
What's the pie recipe, Woody?
That is a pie. I call it a pie, but I make it in a tart shell.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah,
okay,
because
that
I
pie.
think it's a better balance of crust.
That pie, but
filling.
more because of the crust.
What, because of the crust?
Because of the flaky crust. That's the other recipe they should have. Of your pie recipes, they,
Oh, right. Okay, the other recipe that everybody should do is a pie crust.
Right.
And I'm more
Yeah.
proud of the pie crust than anything else I've ever done, except to use weights. You know, that's my claim to fame. But the pie crust has gone through many permutations, and this is my ultimate. And what I discovered, the most mind-blowing thing, is that I put in the book.
you have your pastry Bible.
I'm sorry?
You have your pastry Bible.
I don't.
I do in there. In that book, in that bag, if you want to grab it.
I call for pastry flour because there's nothing, so I thought, equal to it for tenderness and just the right protein content. But I discovered that all-purpose flour, either bleached or unbleached, works every bit as well if you add 1 tablespoon of sugar per pie crust. So if you're making a double crust,
That's
2
interesting.
tablespoons. If you're making a galette, which is somewhere between the 2, 4 teaspoons, you don't have to buy pastry flour anymore, and it's not available in the supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But when I say all-purpose, I'm not talking about White Lily. That's not. I mean, talking about the national brand, not Safeway.
King Arthur.
You call it Unsafeway.
Would you I love King Arthur.
Yes.
Do you golden egg?
Yes, I use Goldman, but I do use King Arthur for some things, but that's a higher protein content. But with the sugar, you see, the higher the protein, the more the gluten formation, and the chewier it is. Whereas the sugar tenderizes, plus it helps it to brown more. So this is one of my most
I'm gonna have to try
exciting
it,
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
The
I'm excited
reason why I wanted that book is we're in pastry Bible. All those pages are
pie crust.
pie crust recipes. In this book, there's one.
Yeah, and then there's
The
the
best.
pet sucre.
plus the variations
the only
on
one
the
I ever
flaky.
did.
Yeah, so that tells it right there.
How many of you, many people have made rugelach? Yeah.
Yep.
Because I think this pie crust makes the best rugelach, and I'll tell you why. First of all, you can use the scraps. You just layer them, freeze them when you have enough, make rugelach. It's because rugelach doesn't have cream in it. It generally just has, well, certainly not carb either, but it just has the butter and the either sour cream or cream cheese. And I like a cream cheese rugelach. But when you make this pie crust, you get some flakiness. See if you can find the rugelach in there, because
I wanted to make that.
oh, that's so
I
much
should have
work.
made it.
Well, it isn't really. No, if you have to have pie crust. I mean, compared to a cookie.
Yeah, the cookie is my second choice.
We're actually going to do that as a demo at a place, a cooking school. Is that
Yes,
where it's
that's
broken?
beautiful.
But no, I wanted to show where it's broken because then you can see the flakiness of it. Oh, there.
Put on your zoom lenses on your glasses.
Yeah, that's the
How about I
phone.
take it around, Sean?
Okay.
Okay,
While you,
and then we'll start talking about.
we in
You
favorite
do
bread?
Cookies. Oh, bread.
Favorite bread?
Well, I would say the beginning bread is the gooey bread because you do it in a food processor. It takes 45
Right.
seconds.
Right.
But you really need a scale because when you measure beer, it has a head, so you don't need to trigger it. You still have to let it rise, but it's just so forgiving. My favorite bread.
Now you look at anytime you want.
That's true. Again.
I like multigrain.
I I'm sorry.
We'll let you look at it upside down.
My favorite bread.
Yeah, that's even better, because then she's like holding her hands towards you.
We did the bread, we did the cookie, we did the pie, we did the cake. Okay, we're good. I love how you start the book, like most baking books, with your pantry and your tools. So we talked about, I'm sure you're going to say scale. Everyone needs a scale. And then I want to talk about your line of products too. Besides a scale, what are a couple other things that every baker needs?
I think people who get serious about baking these days, stand mixers are so affordable.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you can do it in a hand mixer, but there's some things you can't. For example, the pavlova, that's another breakthrough. I discovered making meringue, you don't have to add the sugar gradually when you with the stand mixer. You can put it in right at the beginning and then beat it on high. I think it's for 15 minutes.
10 minutes.
No, 12. We're both wrong.
Me too.
Anyway,
I'm
you can't,
thinking-
with a
okay,
hand
I'm
mixer,
thinking
you'd be there till the cows come
I
up.
think
Well, it's slightly different for different recipes. You know, I have a list of breakthroughs, and of course it's all in the book, but just to highlight.
Yeah, tell us about some of those.
we can,
Well,
we can't just see something like angel food cake.
for sure.
Has anybody made angel food cake? How do you make it? I mean, what's your order?
Oh, it's been years.
Okay,
but
well, you put the egg whites in, then you gotta put in what else? You gotta froth them up a little bit, right?
Oh,
Then
Sorry,
you gotta
I
add the sugar a little bit at a time.
Yeah,
Go from
a little bit, right. I'd beat the egg whites first. Do you?
Yeah. The new recipe, and that's what we've been doing for years, is you throw in your egg whites, throw in cream of tartar, and the sugar all at once. Let it sit there for about 10 minutes till it's all dissolved. 30, we say 30. And then just beat it.
Really?
So instead of doing 3, 4 steps, 1. And it does the same thing. Whoops up.
And with egg whites and things like that, as long as your mixer's a little bit back on the counter, you don't have to worry about it. I don't ever leave a mixer alone. No, it hasn't, but I've heard more
It
stories.
happened to me.
Yeah.
I call it the old pencil trick. Here's your mixer, and here's the pencil. And when you hear the pencil fall, you run like, yeah.
Oh, I should do that. I should do that because I always want to do something else. Like when I'm browning the butter, I said, "Oh, I want to do something else," but no, as soon as I turn away, But I stayed there and did exactly what you said.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, I have a
sound.
friend.
None of them have ever had that accident.
No, no, okay.
We never had that accident.
Something that we do is that we weigh the batter, because we give weights to the finished batters, and we find that if, for example, it's 3 grams less than it should be, we know we forgot to put something in. That's a good
Oh,
tip.
that's a good idea.
Hmm.
Yes.
See, on one of the cakes in the cake bottle, I think it was the Grand Marnier, you add part of the sugar and then you add the other. Oh, at any rate, I only add half the sugar. And usually you can fix things, like I tried adding more of the sugar to the syrup. It just doesn't have the right consistency when you don't have all the sugar in it. I was on the phone when it was doing it.
That's a great idea because you know how many times I forgot sugar or something. That's really smart.
I like less sugar
Nor do
than
they.
most people, but I don't want no sugar.
Yeah.
I mean, baking is sugar. I can do that flour. General Mills wasn't happy to hear that when they put my face on their cake flour, on their bread flour for a while, on a recipe. So I had to avoid talking about cake flour and other things like that. But I couldn't certainly do recipes for flourless cakes.
Yeah, so we'll comment on the weighing part too, though, is that we do take the fact that you may not be a good scraper, or you might leave it just like forget it, I'm not going to scrape it all out. So we do put a loss in there. So if the ingredients really add up to 1,500 grams, we figure it down to 1,475. We put a loss factor in there, so you don't have to feel bad if you don't quite make what we got for weight. But the other thing, if you weigh out, if you're doing cookies and you have a scale, we do tell you how much per cookie. So let's say 30 grams per cookie. So you put on a scale and you perfect Oreo-sized cookies. I mean, they're just like they come out of the package. They all look the same, sort of. So.
You already mentioned that when cookies are different sizes, the ones, by the time the big ones bake, the little ones are underbaked.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about, so we did the mixer and the scale. Let's talk about your product line. I had your pie plate, and I thought I had, you did the rolling pin things originally, but now you have these.
My first thing was the pie plate. Actually, my first thing was the mercury thermometer. It was the only accurate thermometer out there. It was so frustrating to me. What?
Well, he just looked up like, oh wow, you made a mercury thermometer.
Yeah, I remember Cook's Magazine reviewed it, and it said it wasn't quite as good as the red mercury one because it was easier to see the red mercury. And I thought, wow, they've discovered a new element, red mercury. Just alcohol. And so I thought, I'm being reviewed by people who aren't educated enough to know what they're talking about. This has changed. Now they have scientists that work on all the magazines. They know more than I do. I think they do. But anyway, mercury is the most repeatable, quickest, fastest reactive thing. But then, after many years of selling it to Dina DeLuca or Sonoma, it became illegal. But by, I forget what governmental agency felt that it should not be used in the kitchen because if it broke, it'll be okay, except if it heats when it breaks, it's dangerous. I still use it sometimes, but then Thermoworks came along. And they created the thermopen, and it's not quite as fast as mercury, but really close.
I'm sorry, I
can't
love
live
my
without that
thermopen.
thermopen.
Yeah, I have two, one for savory, one for baking. So
I
I,
have one in one kitchen and one in the other.
yeah, so I don't, because I don't want to mix them. I mean, it's not kosher.
I was just gonna ask.
No, it's just, I don't know, I have a butt pan for savory and a butt pan for cakes. I just don't want to,
Huh.
I wash, clean them, I just, I can separate.
Well, I certainly separate my
They're
silicone
upstairs,
spatulas.
downstairs.
Yeah,
Because the silicone does not let release the
yeah. Oh, well, that's good to know.
Does not like-
Release the odors
It
of
keeps,
certain.
like garlic. You just can't get it out 100%. I mean, if you really only had one ever, you could put it in the sunshine. Sunshine actually sterilizes and cleans things, but it takes weeks, so you can't make a cake for a week.
Can you hold off on your birthday? My special is sunny.
Garlic flavor, great.
Okay, so tell us about Fast Tracks.
Oh,
This is like,
Well, we should back up on it.
yeah, the roll. It started with the rolling pin
Yeah.
because I wrote to this guy. It was a dough-mat that was written about one of the magazines, and they said it really was very non-stick. And I found that it was the most non-stick surface I ever could use. And I kept writing about it in the cookbooks, and finally I sent him a book after he wrote it. It was written up in it. And he called me, and I said, you know, if you could do a rolling pin, the same material, I would give up my collection of 35 wooden rolling pins, one of which my father made me, because I don't want to keep adding flour or have to use the pastry cloth. Not the pastry cloth, the sleeve, or the knitted sleeve. So he got inspired to do it, and it's like the identical material, but it's called Singlass. And unfortunately, we decided not to carry one on tour because they might have considered it a weapon. Although it's too lightweight to really kill somebody with it. Oh, the picture. Okay. Well then, yeah, it comes in different colors. White, I think, is the most popular, but I like my canvas red. And the thing is, you can take the ends off and stuff it with something to weight it. But I find you don't need a heavy weight.
Non-stick.
If
and it really, and you don't have to add
hardly any, and sometimes none.
That's
Come
the
on.
only thing
You do have for the
What's there is
dough-mat.
either a fast
You need
track,
to
put
add some
things on the
flour
roller,
because by the time you roll out,
and lay them down the railroad tracks.
right.
unless it's cold.
And they come like 3 different
Yeah.
sizes. So
But well,
Do you
you
use a
have
marble
the
board?
dough-mat.
Do you have a
I have a marble
Yeah.
counter, so it keeps it cool. But you
it's
can
a
always
dough-mat
put
with
ice on your
different
counter as
circles
long
of
as you
different sizes.
wipe it clean. And by the way, with that dough mat, they should write this right
It's,
now.
yeah,
If
yeah,
you let the
non-stick.
counter and
They,
it's
they,
slide forward, it
yeah,
doesn't
so
move.
they call it,
And when it's new and it comes
thick,
rolled up, you put
Singlass.
some tape on to just keep it going flat.
I usually, when I want something like that, I just put 4
There's the
cookbooks
white
on
one,
each
yeah.
corner and pray that it flattens out eventually. That's a good
Actually, I
idea.
Oh,
have
yeah,
to have the
very
guy
light.
send you the things
But
that you
you-
don't have
and
to tell me what
those
you
are-
do about, so I can.
I don't have these yet. I want to look into the
And the mini
silicone.
rolling.
And actually,
We also have a little
ends of the
rolling because I
thing
find
are
I use a small
if you
one
want-
that size is
so in
almost
case you
more
want to
than the
store
big
your
one. You know, when you want to get to
Right.
corners
Or if you want to
and
wait-
Oh,
fondant
so
or
this
even
is
cookies.
you need to track the.
But these, I call them fast tracks.
No, you don't have to.
Because we were
But
talking
if you
about
wanna make sure your pie
the
crust is-
rubber bands or the rubber
Does it give
invisible
different-
one.
Yeah, we,
Different heights?
yeah, we
Yes,
have
well,
actually
and
some
I'm
sort of
sorry,
like a
because I'm
quarter
thinking
inch,
that-
an eighth,
For years I would
3/30
say
seconds, so you can
to roll it, I
vary
think
the
it
height
was
of your.
16th of an inch, whatever it was I said, I didn't realize that it was
Well,
actually
the way we came up
thinner
with
than I
that,
intended
the
because
way we came
the
up with
bands
it,
had
a
gotten
lot of people
I
said,
mean, I
well,
liked
roll your
it
pie
that way.
crust to.
So when I made the fast tracks, I made some of them 3/30 seconds. because that was
Yeah.
what I was actually
To
getting.
like
I
a-
thought I'd written an eighth, that was it.
Quarter,
I was
like
getting
a quarter
four
inch.
seconds,
Right, right.
And that's
But if
better.
we roll it out,
Because
most
it doesn't
with
compress.
even with the
These
rails,
come
it usually
three
comes to
different
330
sizes,
seconds.
16,
So that's what we came up with.
for highs and tards.
And the
And
bands
basically-
get smaller, is that?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because when you stretch it over the pin, it
Okay,
keeps
you
getting
too.
bigger.
Right.
And plus it compresses anyway.
Now
Whereas
it's a
these
dual
don't.
man, that's-
And these can be put in the dishwasher.
Those
and you
things.
don't use it for safe. You don't need it for your savory.
There we go.
I could have just taken the box out, everything's on there.
That's it.
Yes.
Any other products coming out? This is your newest, right?
Yeah, no, the newest one actually, he calls the Holy Trinity of spatulas. I think
Oh, yeah, that's what you're saying.
He's Irish and I write Bibles, so that is an important name is what it was called. But I had this one little spatula that I found and I said, this is what I use all the time. Can you manufacture this? And I gave him a few more specs if I wanted it. It's about that thin, that long.
Well, it's probably near somewhere.
Yeah, because I use it for everything, scraping off the paddle with the beater. And he said, well, I really would like to do a trilogy. That's where he was going with it. So I also like a small spoonchilla, you know, the one that's slightly curved, and then a flat one that's slightly larger. And those are the three I use the most often.
Okay. I'll have to look for those too.
And I think, yeah, that is the latest. Oh no, we have a cherry pitter. I've always used a large hairpin that I impregnate into, you've seen that? Into a champagne cork so it's comfortable in my hand. And I said, I don't see where I need it, but it's very hard finding those hairpins. And these are really sturdy.
So what's your cherry
pitters.
pill? Is it what, plastic or a jar?
It's stainless steel. No, it does one at a time. And it's really dangerous to use those ones that do one after the other because cherry pits are different sizes. And if you bite on a cherry pit, it could ruin your life. Because you get that maxillofacial pain that doesn't go away. So either it will put the pits through or put them through.
You've done it.
Not
Remember about 2
not
years?
anything I've
Remember
been.
2 years ago when
I think
when I
one-
did
one
make
of the
that
ones
pie,
are one at
we
a
were at
time.
your cousin Beth's.
Exactly. Sometimes when we all do this, when we're separating the flesh from the pit or something, and every once in a while we put the pit in here and the flesh in the pit. But then you know you've done it.
Yeah.
You think, oh, it's something that they should have a name for that in the medical condition. You know?
Yeah. Well, it's easy to see when you miss a peach pit, but a cherry pit would be hard to.
But you know you've done it. You know you do it.
I have one, but
What did
I have to try yours. It's a like a little jar, and there's one at a time,
Mhm.
and then you can just see if a pit didn't fall in there, then there's a pit in that cherry.
I've tried just about everything, and the only reason I accepted this is that it really worked perfectly. Both the sour cherries and sweet cherries.
That's what it comes back to.
I can't think if there's anything else new. But I have to tell you about the pie plate because people have problems with they're kind of pie crust impaired. They're afraid that they can't make a nice edge. So what I did is I made a pie plate that is deeply convoluted so that all you have to do is press it in the dough and then it keeps the shape beautifully. But even if you succeed without that in making a beautiful rim, the chances are when you put it in the oven, it's going to sink a lot from the heat, even at high heat. So this way it has nowhere to go. It's in the picture. Yeah. You'll
You got
see.
your Fitbit on because you're getting steps while you're going on showing on the pictures today.
We should have a PowerPoint.
Yeah, big screen on there. Okay. Most bakers are cooks, but most cooks aren't bakers. Are you a cook? Would you say you're a cook as well?
Oh yeah.
I want
Yeah.
to say the same thing. And the French culinary actually had an exam to see what type of brain you had, whether you were willing to submit yourself to the dictates of baking and being precise, or whether you like to what they call the shitterine method. When my mother first said that, I was so shocked because my mother never swore in her life. But my mother spoke German and Yiddish, and that shit means to pour. It's gotten such a bad rap for that word. So it means that you just add it in without measuring or weighing. Yeah.
Right. So, do you already any thoughts about a savory title or baking?
I did too.
Did you?
Yeah.
You can
Yeah,
get
actually-
them for I think $3 on
Yeah,
Amazon.
Well, I
You're
have
looking
all your
good
books.
deal on her
What's
books.
your savory book? What
Yeah.
The melting Rose's milk.
Oh, the melting pot. Yes. sorry.
Rose's Melting Pot
And Rose's
Celebrations, which are kind of companion books,
Mhm.
and they were written right after, pretty shortly after the Baking Bible.
Well,
I mean, after the Cake
baking-
Bible. After the Cake Bible.
First it was the Cake Bible, then Rose's Christmas cookies, and then there was Passion for Chocolate translation, and then we did those two.
Yeah.
savory
So
ones.
they're out of print, but you can get them through through Amazon to bookstores or libraries where
I
some,
have them. I
you can
just
pick them
haven't
up for
done them
$3.
so long. Are you thinking about
You-
this?
I think
Or even a
you
quarter,
can,
and
Yeah, I
they're
did-
230,
I think
250
sure
page
you
books.
did.
So
And
they're,
indexing.
Oh, yeah,
And
no,
they're
they're
like-
on.
they're
Oh,
like
you
menu
should
books.
see your books, yeah.
so you get your
Any
dessert,
thoughts for the same title? Another one?
salad,
Well, I
main
still
courses,
have
and
two
so
more
forth.
other books
Depending
to
on which
remember.
one is more
But he wants me in
ingredient,
his
let's see,
memoir,
all
he's
meat
saying
section,
he's
then a chapter,
He wants me to
no one's
do
all menu
like
section.
his everyday
But
Dory,
they're pretty
every
good
night
deals.
rose.
Yeah, that'll be good.
I
That'll
don't
be
dare
great.
to that we have the same publisher.
Yeah.
Plus I wait longer.
And I'm almost done. I think we're almost at the end of the questions here, but are you a cookbook fan? You have your own cookbooks.
You don't know how many thousands of books I have.
Oh, I love you even more now. Do you have any favorites?
Of course.
Yeah.
The new.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, you got about 3,000 books.
Oh, wait, I have to. Well, he's been in the academy.
Because I inventory them.
Put them on your books so that you can search them and you can track them.
Hmm?
Did you put
She
them on
suggests
your
you put
books?
out your books
So you can.
Yeah.
We buy my own tracks.
He's in competition here.
Oh, wow.
What is
Yeah, I have been, like,
That's what you
like
need
you
to
probably
do.
do, you probably have your shelves in. You have to have an inventory shelf in the system.
But can you search all your every recipe in each of those books?
No, we don't have to either.
I remember my George Joffrey when I were.
What is difficult?
My George Joffrey was saying also that she's forgotten which book. When you write this many books, you don't remember which is in what. That's what I wrote in the book. It's so invaluable. Okay, the first thing that comes to mind is Cenk. It's spelled C-E-N-K. The guy from Turkey.
Oh, yes. The Artful
Cenk's
Baker.
The Artful Baker. It's the most beautiful baking book I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And
Came out about 2 years ago.
that long ago? Huh.
Yep.
Time does fly. All right, Kenji's book, the
Food Lab.
Food Lab. I never remember that book. It's really interesting. I
Yeah.
keep meaning to read my way through
Yeah,
it.
and
What else do I love?
Food Lab,
Aaron's book.
if you
Yeah.
Aaron's baby.
if you're curious about Food Lab, if you go on the web, Serious Eats is his website, which a lot of the stuff is in there.
And of course, Harold McGee.
On Langy.
Huh? Oh, Langley, yes. Oh, and Helen Go's book, Sweet.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of errors,
Oh, that's what
that was just, I had made so many enemies because I was saying it's a book. Mistakes happen. It was not their fault. They hired someone, and the people were like, off with their heads. And I said, they're going to make it right. They published it. And then everybody got a new book, autographed with a Staub spoon, and then they were like the greatest
Wow.
people
I
ever.
didn't know they did that.
Yeah, all you do is give them a spoon and they'll stop saying off with your head. But yeah, that's
We
that was
became
real
pen
fun.
pals. We haven't met, but I
Helen
saved
and-
every letter. Both of them.
Helen's very sweet, yeah, because we were working together with making sure all the errata got out to our members and to the public.
I remember that. You know, actually, where I met Ottolenghi Yotam was that he did an article for the London Times in which his favorite show, his favorite food, his favorite book, and listed my book. So of course I immediately sent him the next one, the newest one.
Yeah.
And so we've been kind of fans of each other ever since. And I also have not met him, but I haven't been to London since this happened. So anytime that my brother or my cousin go there, I send them. I say, please say hi.
Well, he's coming back to the U.S. You should, because he's touring for Central.
I know. But I hope
Hook
we
'em up.
either cross
Yeah.
paths or we'd go into New York if we knew who was going to go.
Yeah, I think he's been in
I'm sure everybody
Yeah.
wants to New York.
Yeah. So, okay, do I talk about that? So tell us what's next in the book world.
Okay,
Because-
and then I have to tell you my favorite things in this book. Or maybe I should
That was going to be my question, but Woody got stuck up on our fourth one, so I didn't want to squeeze that one in. So yes, go ahead and tell us about your
I had to write it down because I was afraid it wouldn't just. Usually things rise up that are most important, but my brain is so full. I mean, I'm used to just talking to Woody all day and my husband at night. But all of a sudden now that I'm surrounded by millions of people and I don't know who I said what to. Anyway, my top favorite, which I'm not forgetting in the book, of all the cakes and all the recipes, is the triple lemon bun cake. And I've done things that are similar, but one has poppy seed, another one has nuts. This one has no nuts, it's just pure lemon. And it has 3 different textures of lemon. It has the lemon zest, it has the lemon syrup it's brushed with, and then it has what I always said a hara, the kind of powdered sugar glaze that works. Even, in fact, Cenk on Facebook or on Instagram recently wrote that he made that cake in Turkey, and that both he and his mother will never eat another lemon cake again. Other than that, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I want to make that too. That was on my list of things to make, but I'm going to probably make it this weekend.
Oh,
We love
good.
lemon.
You will love it, and because I love it so much, and I made it for the Nordic Ware 15-cup pan, which is like that. But I say that if you don't have that large a pan, just fill it less full and make cupcakes, or you can make it in two 6-cup pans, or you can make it into loaf pans. You know,
It's
adaptable.
versatile.
I was going to do it for cupcakes for here too, but I was going to do a lot
I
of things.
like all your ideas there.
But you want something portable, to bring something like this. So
The
what's
flourless chocolate cake. There's also one with nuts, because it's easy to do a flourless cake by replacing the flour with nuts, but this one doesn't have any replacement. It's just pure chocolate. And I find the picture, please, because I think that it's so simple, but it's one of the most beautiful ones.
I was going to make that this week. No, I really was going to make it this weekend for a friend who is gluten-free.
Yeah.
But there's something in there. He can't have dairy. He can't have nuts, and you can't
There are
have
no
gluten.
nuts in that one, but there is, well, there's
Butter.
only whipped, butter.
Butter. So I said, I can't make that one because I wanted to make it because then you can upload the picture to your books.
It's really tough when you can't have anything
Yeah.
like that.
I said, okay, I'll give you a strawberry. That'll be dessert.
There's our
It's beautiful, isn't it?
flawless.
Looks
Of
amazing.
course, the better chocolate you use, the
Page 177.
I love caramel. So either the milk chocolate caramel tart or the dark chocolate caramel tart. One has more caramel than the other. The dark one has more caramel. Because it would be too sweet to have more caramel with the milk chocolate.
Right.
Since it's sweeter. Pizza Rosa. I've worked for years to get the pizza the crust that doesn't dip, the tip doesn't dip, so you don't have to turn into a calzone in order to eat it. And that is crispy, but not too chewy. Anyway, it's everything I wanted it to be. And my big secret to get the nice bubbly rim, it's not such a secret, but it's something to stress, is that when you make the dough a day ahead, you get the most rise like that. Whereas if you make it the same day, it's still good, but it's never quite
It
the
doesn't
same.
have better flavor too. I
That
think.
too,
Yeah.
oh definitely.
Yeah.
So, in fact, to increase the flavor, I add some bran, wheat bran.
Do
Gives it a
you
lovely
use a
flavor.
stone or a steel?
Either one, but I
Yeah.
discovered that using the Loge cast iron pizza pan, not as the only thing to bake it on, because I use parchment, I slip it on that. But if you preheat that, it works every bit as well as either a steel or a stone, and it's like $20. It's the least expensive. But you have to have good aim because it's, it's limited. If you have a square thing, it doesn't matter where it lands.
Right.
I also have instructions for doing it on the grill, and really good tomato sauce. That we've done. The last thing, chocolate malt ganache. I don't like the flavor of malt, but I've discovered that when you add enough so you don't know the malt is there, it accentuates the chocolate, and that's exciting. So that's pretty much it, other than the blog that everybody likes to talk about, but we had time. Sure. Because he migrated the entire 13-year-old blog
Have
from
you
one
been
platform to
to
another.
Rose's website? Good. The new one?
I'm not sure. It's been. I don't know.
This year?
Oh yes, this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're on the new website, yeah. Yeah, we have a new website, well, it's a year old now. A couple of answers on the website, especially for you with all those books, is a good author will have a correction section on their website. So if you think, because we'll get questions saying, I made this cake or I made this pie, something's wrong. And sometimes they don't tell us what it was, or they think they told what it was. And we'll say, go to the correction section first. We'll tell them what we think it is, but we'll say, go check the corrections. Google it. So all the corrections are there. You can print them off, and they can put them in your book. We also have a question answered. A lot of websites you go into, and there's no way of really asking them a question unless they do a posting. Then you go, oh, you went to France, fine. I want to ask you about your chocolate cake. And you can start picking on there. But we have an open section for question and answer. We try to answer within 48 hours. We do have on vacation right now, do touring right now. So
This is vacation.
well, it's sort of vacation. So we have.
It is.
So we've said we
We've
can't
vacated.
answer it now, but we will get to it. In fact, I've been putting little flags on all these emails. We get triggers. So I got about 5 of them right now. As far as this book goes, a couple nice things. We have a page dedicated for all the books. Each book has its own dedicated page, except for the ones that we mentioned earlier, like Melting Pot, which there's one main page for that. And if you want to see how we made this book, how we did the step-by-step photos, how we, the fun of doing copy editing, the fun of doing proofing, and all that stuff. We have like 16 different postings on that, so if you want to kind of get into the book and see how we did that, or see who are the people behind making the book. The photographer who's 6 foot, I think he's 6'6", not
I
6
keep
foot.
saying 6'8", but at my
He's-
height,
he-
everybody looks bigger.
And how he managed to shoot all these pictures. We have that. Also, we have I'll call it, well, it's weekly tip of the month, tip of the week. So different things you can do as far as kitchen hack type stuff that we've come across. Some are postings from her previous steps or tips from her previous blog are in there as well. We also do a recipe of the month. So it's something that we thought was good. And a lot of those recipes are savory. We have a really good short rib recipe. Do you like short ribs? No, we love them, so we have that. So it's probably actually about 40 different pages. And also if you go, well, I looked at the step-by-step, but I really want to make this yellow cake. Has she done this before? Rose has about 150 videos from previous TV show appearances, or TV series, Baking Magic, which was on PBS about 8 years ago. She's done Charlie Rose, long time ago.
And I didn't take it off after the meeting.
And also she did 2 series, one for Videocraft way back in the 90s. And also one when the Roses Heavenly Cakes came out. There was a series down at General Mills' studios, which are like little short, 2 or 3 minute long. How to sift flour, how to
Make spun sugar.
make a sponge sugar, and how to make bread. And so you can go to YouTube and see those. If you want to see a listing of those are on the blog too. We have a dedicated page where you can see the listing for it, and then you can go to YouTube and find it.
I'm gonna make a note, we'll index all your videos
So,
too, so that people can,
yeah.
Oh,
because we have everything of yours indexed. I'll make sure you start doing your website too. Because that way they have everything in one spot.
And once we get back, we'll start putting in what we call outbakes, making books, some various type of variations we came up with recipes in this book, and what other people have done to it. So it makes it more fun.
We also had out cakes for the Heavenly Cakes book.
And the baking
the next
Bible.
book is going to be out scoops. See if that will give you a clue as to what
Ice cream! So that answers my question, your next book's on ice cream.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Next
It's
one's
going
ice
to be
cream.
called Rose's Ice Cream Bliss, because that's how I feel about it.
Bliss.
Is that
Bliss.
2019 or is it that farther out?
Did you
No,
say
it's
this?
2020.
No, I thought she said the ice cream.
My editor couldn't believe
Blitz?
that.
Oh, like
Between
Blitz,
all-
like a-
all the production of
all over the
I was
place.
working on ice cream.
It could be that too.
Expected
But that's
to be
good.
finished
Ice
on
cream
time,
bliss
which
and
is-
heavenly cake.
Today was due. Is today October 1st? Yes, it was due today, but since we were away, I thought I'd hand it in before. For 2 reasons. One is that I always want to leave with something finished and not send it in in case God forbid something should happen. And the other is that if I don't send it in, I keep wanting to add more stuff. I will anyway, probably.
Is it gonna have a lot of pictures or is it gonna be?
Well,
more
they
short?
thought it wasn't because they thought that ice cream doesn't look all that different. But then I sent her, I have in Dropbox a whole, I forget what it's called, but it's a share. And there are at least 50 pictures of the ice creams, and they're so gorgeous, the different colors. And there's one that's shaped like a rose, because it just every time you scoop it, it comes out differently.
But there'll be,
So it's
for
my
sure.
first non-baking book, because you don't bake ice cream. Oh, but there are things in it that are baked.
Yeah,
Like the,
we'll have, we call them socials, we do like a chocolate chip cookie, make a sandwich out of that, or a cake, for a cake roll, ice cream cake roll, waffle
it
cones.
grew, it got to be more than that.
So,
Because I love
And
like
toppings.
ice cream books, but I like some baked, a little bit baking. You know, so because
Can't-
it
can't
appeals
stay
to
away
yeah,
from it.
yeah.
Oh, we didn't tell them about.
The Cordon Rose? Oh yeah, this is the first time that I've gotten a ribbon marker. I
Mm-hmm.
had to give up the dust jacket for it. Oh, and then she said if I might be able to get you a debased cover.
Debased?
That's what
Embossed, you mean?
spell check. Spell check.
They're all looking like, that's wrong. They're all
Well,
like
that's
Steve
the
Boss.
funny part, you know, that
They
she
all
said
know
deboss.
deboss.
I know what embossing is. I didn't know what debossing was. So when I wrote to everybody, guess what? I'm getting a debossed cover. Instagram and the spell check changes to debased. You know, so I'm making it same. The name of my school, cooking school for years, and then my business was Cordon Rose, which is pink ribbon. And so it's kind of amazing that when I finally got the ribbon, I got the name of my school for it. But you know, in a way, I'm glad to give up dust jackets because they always tore. We grab it by here, and that part would tear. And that way, just the cover is what the cover is. Because in the cake bottle, one of the most beautiful cakes is not pictured in the book because it was on the cover. And if you lose the cover, you lose it.
I just think you need about 20 of those ribbons because I was using the ribbon to mark what I was going to
Yep.
make instead of Post-it notes, which I know.
I use
Jane, don't
Post-its.
listen to this. I use Post-it notes still because she says mark your recipe, don't eat your books. But I kept moving the ribbon. Okay, so then finally ended up with the chocolate chip cookies. So
Well, you know what they said at the Philadelphia Library, which is the first place we went to on the tour, that they were so happy to see. First of all, they said that people take out cookbooks more than any other books. It's nationwide. But the other thing is she's so happy to see in my books that they've dog-eared them to show that they really are using them. But it kills me to see a dog-eared book. I mean, especially in the world of post-its, why would they have to do that?
yeah. But you know what? I was kind of like that too. But I think when you have a book that has some little thing, I don't like the dog ear, but like make a note or
Yes, it needs to be used.
yeah, it means it's being loved. So as an author, you should love
No.
that a little bit. I wouldn't dog ear someone else's book. I wouldn't, and I haven't dog eared anything except for this piece of paper right now because you got me so nervous.
Nervous?
Because of dog ear.
Can I say something?
Yes.
One nice neat thing with Rose has done too is where all authors, of course, gotta have that. Me, gotta have that in the back of the book, right? Even on the end. But she said,
First
you know, this book wouldn't come around without the photographer. I mean, you got almost 700 pictures in the book. Someone had to shoot them. And also, hey, we couldn't pull off these beauty shots without having somebody style that thing. That was not.
Somebody
that
could
wasn't
style
quite
five things in one day.
wasn't quite put where that was. So she made sure those who made this book happen got the picture there. In fact, the picture was taken by the daughter of the photographer.
She's only 11 years old.
And she's
Oh,
11
cute.
years old when she did that.
I didn't realize she was so young because she's tall like her father. So then he asked me if I'd give her a baking lesson in the summer. And that's when I found out how young she was because she was such a pain when she came. I thought, I hope this doesn't happen again. And then he asked if I'd do it again this summer, and this time she had grown up just 1 year. And I have a new friend. I mean, it was like talking to somebody my age almost. It was so interesting. I was glad that I withheld judgment.
Well, now
But
it's
when
on
she saw
Facebook
that she
Live,
was
so.
getting credit,
Now it's on Facebook Live.
She shaped up.
Delete.
I don't think I know how. Sorry.
Loves her now.
the thing is that she wasn't expecting to get credit, and she didn't hear it, or she said it didn't matter. But when she saw it, I think it meant a lot to her.
Yeah. Question answers.
Sure. Take that up, promise.
I don't know how. I'm sorry.
No.
It was sweet. It was sweet.
Yeah,
It's sweet. It ended up being sweet. So,
No, she was too.
Okay.
Any questions?
so you said you have 3,000 books, and the books you all named were more recent ones. What are some of the older books that you found really interesting?
I was going to be mentioning the one that my standard thing I go to, like if I want to remember how much salt to put in the water for shrimp, is Jean Anderson's Doubleday cookbook. I also like America's Test Kitchen.
I contributed almost all this.
Which? Oh, that's right. The White House.
We got the White House cookbook from like 1928.
Oh, wow.
Really a child.
Otherwise, well, you got like the
What Paul Wilford.
The whole series of books
I'm
from
thinking
none
of
of the-
books that I actually use now. I don't use cookbooks a lot anymore. I mean, it's a terrible thing to say, but I love having them, I love reading them. But when I'm in a rush, and if I'm going to look something up,
Well, you,
I look online
That's
and I
true.
have
Otherwise
my
you
own favorite recipes.
unless you had MK Fisher.
Oh, yeah.
Which
I
book?
don't really bake from her.
MK Fish?
I cook from her books.
Yeah.
I like her writing. I get inspired by the reading of people's. I've cooked from Yotam to ladies and also Helen Guards. But you know, it's hard to cook from other people's things when you're working on your next thing and then test it too. So.
I get inspiration from cookbooks. I think, more than cooking.
Oh, you know what I do is if somebody asks me for a quote, and I stopped giving quotes long ago because it would have been a full-time job. But if I want to write about it, sometimes I'll say, okay, I'll cover it, but I always test a recipe. And like Tish Boyle's book was wonderful. So that's how I do bake or cooking. And Lisa Yockelson, she's a colleague and a wonderful person.
Anybody heard of Lisa?
Yes.
She wrote Chocolate.
Baking
Style. She actually, Baking by Flavor, that's actually my favorite of all. And she actually gave me my editor. She said, you deserve to be as beautifully published as I've been. She knew I wanted a picture of every cake. And that's because Lisa not only went to the Cordon Bleu in England, she also got her master's in theology. So when you talk about lack of competition, she knew. I mean, I was going to be going to do a baking book, and that's her area. It's not like somebody who's doing savory. He said, well, my editor, I'm sure, would like to help you. This is somebody who probably, she knew. I mean, she even said Rose's books are going to sell mine, I know it. And she does beautiful, beautiful work. And she gave me her photographer for those two books, Heavenly Cakes and the Baking Bible. So she's really one of the special people.
That's big in the cooking. Don't you find that? I mean, I think you're more supportive. I mean, there are some, biting people for lack. I'm being on Facebook Live here, but most people are supportive. I think, or at least I
It's a wonderful food community.
Yeah.
Other questions?
How did the two of you start working together? What's the story
That's
behind
a
that?
long story. Well, make it short with
I'll try to make it short. Rose and her husband lived in Manhattan, and I lived in Twin Cities, Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And I had no real training, just baked, and not that much. But I was baking off her book. And around 2004, I had been making cakes for friends after my Tai Chi group. And another group, and they just kept saying, and mainly her recipes, and they said, you're up in the bakery, you're great. Thanks for the compliments. But I wrote her some questions on email, and she was writing her for Bread Bible Tour, so like, bread, what's this guy telling me about cakes? But we got exchanging emails because she liked my questions, because they were ones that kind of challenged you to think about them. So we exchanged, and about 6 months later, she came to Minnesota to do a cookie exchange with General Mills, and I said, can you sign my books? And I brought some cakes to her to try, and she tried and found pretty good. So she gave me a recipe to try out, and then it went from there.
I thought it'd be nice to have somebody else work with me, because I've been working alone for all that time, and when I was so impressed by what he did, I thought, let's just see if he can test this recipe. See what happens.
So then you said that she said, I'll give him. I think you said she gave me like 10 recipes to try for those Heavenly Cakes, and from there just kept on going.
Yeah, we worked long distance, and it was possible to do because that was just when the technology evolved to the point where I could see what he was doing. I could even see the motion of the sauce, the consistency of it.
Yeah.
And he actually came to work with me for a week, so we could see how we'd work together. If he really understood my way of doing it.
So actually, for 11 years, about 10 years, we just between the two cities, phone calls and photos, and coming out and touring with her once in a while, or doing events. That's how we communicated. But because we work so well together, and also working together saves a lot of time, because we trigger each other. 5 years ago, she and her husband moved to
our weekend place.
Weekend
in the
Place,
mountains.
which is about 80 miles west of New York, right by the Pennsylvania border, the Delaware Water Gap. So they moved there. Russell said, you don't want to live in Jersey, taxes are way up there. You ought to live in PA. Okay. So I got a place right across the border.
Oh, Delaware Water Gap.
I can look at the Jersey border virtually from there. And then I commute to her about 18 minutes.
I remember what happened was that in Heavenly Cakes, we were doing the photo session and he was missing out on it. And I thought it's really too bad because he couldn't only take off so much time from work. And
Yeah.
sometimes he'd take a month off and come and work with me. So it was so good.
A month off?
Well, a few weeks. A week?
Like a week?
Oh, felt like a month. Well, we got so much done. So I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if he were there all the time? And then when we moved, I turned the entire basement into a baking kitchen. And we had triplicates of everything. And I really found Woody invaluable in helping to organize.
With kind of a key. You better be moving to me.
Well, it worked.
So
I can't imagine working without him.
yeah.
now.
So actually, I helped them move in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, took a week off, helped you move in. Then
And then you moved in.
then about 3 months later, I moved in because we were doing the style shooting for Baking Bible. So and then work said, we ain't paying you to go for 2 weeks out there. So fine. I quit. So,
That's a great
yeah,
story.
Yeah.
And I think Publishers Weekly was very clever in doing an interview to ask each of us our perspective. They actually, I think it's linked on the blog.
Yeah, partners in
Check,
crime.
yeah, Partner, I love the title.
What's it called? Partners in what?
In
Creme.
Partners in Crime.
Yeah. Yeah, we had the same thing with Heritage Radio.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
they did an interview
both
where
of us.
she said, I get to talk too, and she asked us both questions.
Sorry, Woody, if I didn't ask you a question.
Oh no.
You didn't need to because he piped in.
Yeah, you've made my job a lot easier tonight. I think this lovely lady has a question.
I was just curious how you got started and how you got
Oh,
your first cookbook.
this is funny.
What was
This
your
is
first
even better.
How far back do I go? I mean, first of
The
all,
childhood.
my mother was a dentist. My mother was
No, you
not
gotta go before that.
How far back?
Because your
My grandmother
Your
had
grandmother-
candy store.
yeah.
That was before I was born.
okay.
But okay. The thing is that I didn't like sugar because she thought it was the enemy, so we never had desserts. And when I tasted my first cake that was made from scratch, I thought it was the most amazing thing. But it didn't have as good a texture as a cake mix. And the only reason I knew cake mix is because once a year for children's birthday, or when I would have a birthday and those little roses that would look so exquisite, I would get a rose because it was my birthday, and then it would just kind of dissolve because it was made from royal icing and really wasn't edible. So it became my goal to, I'm just thinking because just the other day somebody said to me that the yellow cake changed her life in the cake Bible, the downy yellow cake, and I said, well, it changed my life too, because many years later, my master's thesis was on sifting flour and how it affected a yellow cake mix, and also I had all these hypotheses about changing the way in which cakes were mixed. And that was the basis of the Cake Bible, oddly enough, because I didn't get to do those experiments for the master's thesis because it was just all hypothetical. But I did get to do it when I started teaching, and I came up with that perfect cake. And to have her say that, I suddenly realized also it changed my life. So that was the goal. And I was actually teaching. Well, this is really kind of strange when I think about it because I wanted to have a French cooking school. I love savory food. I love it more. I like garlic more than I probably like sweets. But I love making the sweets. And also, my goal was to make them as little sugar as I could where it still didn't compromise texture and flavor. So I told Lady Marshall who had a la Bonne Cocotte in New York, we were friends, and I said, I want to open up a French cooking school. Of course, she probably was thinking, competition. So she said, why don't you teach cake decorating? She said, I can send people to you. They're always wanting to study that. And it was the only thing that I couldn't learn on my own. I went to the Wilton School of Cake Decorating in Chicago, and I learned how to pipe. Because, otherwise I was making blobs. I didn't realize you have to start learning with Crisco. And I guess she was trying to get rid of me because I said, okay, I don't really care how things look as much as I care how they taste. So what I'll do is I'll teach people how to bake, and then the hands-on part will be showing them how to pipe and decorate. So I started the Cordon Rose Cooking School, and one of my students, his wife, was a literary agent, Dominic Ansel. I still don't. Oh no, that's the baker. Sorry.
Boy, he looks really good.
Wrong guy,
He was
wrong.
English. Oh, anyway, he said that
okay.
she would love to represent you, but you have to write a proposal. Now, I've never liked writing proposals. I like doing the thing itself. So, of course, since he never nagged me about it, I never did it. And then along came Arena Chalmers, who, well, it's hard to describe who she is if you don't really know, but she had this concept that she would do a series called the Great American Cooking Schools, because they would be all recipes that were tested since I teach them in class. But what happened was that none of the teachers wanted to type up the recipes except me, because my goal was to get people to steal from me, not to keep them from stealing. I wanted them to do the recipes. So in those days, people wouldn't give out recipes, and people in class would have to write them down. But I had all the recipes done, so she thought it'd be easy, but she didn't know, as a new publisher, that nobody will work on a single-spaced thing, so she had to pay somebody to retype the whole thing. This is before, I think there were word processors, but there weren't computers. So my first book was Romantic and Classic Cakes, and I wrote about 4 times the amount that was.
You get that for about a quarter on Amazon through there as well.
Well, it's kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, seriously.
It's about 75-page paperback.
It's a sweet little book, but the thing is that I didn't know that when you do a series, it's limited. Everybody has to have the same number of pages. So she said, this is really, you'd be amazed to hear what happened, because she said, you have a choice. I'm not going to imitate her beautiful Scottish accent. She said, you can publish with me and make a lot of money, or save it all and have more visibility. And I don't know, whatever choice she gave me, I decided I should probably stay with her. Because she said, you can have all the recipes back someday to make a whole larger book that you've done originally. So the book, eventually, they sold very well, and it continued into the next printing. And then I decided that I really wanted to write what became the Cake Bible. So I called Arena, and she handed me over to her copy editor, who informed me, also with a beautiful English accent, that I could not use these recipes. And I said, but Arena said they belong to me, and I have the copyright. And she said, yes, but you'll be plagiarizing your own copyright. I said, that sounds like an oxymoron, you know? How can you plagiarize your own copyright? So I went to my husband crying, and I said, now my dream of having the whole book under one cover will never be. And he said, just write the book. You'll see, life can change. Sure enough, 5 years went by, and the books, Arena stopped being a publisher, the books disappeared. So everything returned to me, and that was the Cake Bible. So I sent it in.
That'd be mid-'80s.
Mm-hmm.
That's when that happened.
Is that when? Yeah, because Barbara Kafka gave me 3 wishes, and one of them was to write a book, and she introduced me to her editor, and that was Anne Branson, and I sent in the manuscript, and it came back addressed to Condom Rose. They didn't know from Cordon Rose. And they said,
Speaking of the Me Too movement.
well, I hate to tell you what I wrote back to the publisher.
We got that. We have that envelope in the baking kitchen on the wall.
Yeah, I framed it. Well, I can't be on record for what I told them. But I thought it doesn't matter because I'm never
So if you
going to
come visit us, you can walk in the front door, or the basement door, and 5
See
feet
it.
to your right, you can see that letter.
Yeah, but guess what? Now I've forgotten because you interrupted me.
Too bad.
No, I thought I'm gonna tell them how wrong they were and exactly in certain terms, because I'll tell you what Anne had written as well. But I thought it doesn't matter. I'll never publish with HarperCollins. And guess what? I mean, publishing is so complex that William Morrow, that did the Cake Bible, now is owned by HarperCollins, and I adore my editor there, Cassie Morgan. So life is funny. But what Anne wrote was that you throw the reader into a quandary of contingencies. You go over their head and you tell them more than they need to know. Because in those days, it was before Harold McGee, who wrote and exclaimed on food and cooking. They didn't think people wanted to know. And what's more, it was the macrobiotic movement, and nobody's interested in sweets and calories and butter. I did it because it was what I loved. And when somebody introduced me to Marie Guarin Shelley, and I went in there and spoke to her, she said, first of all, who's your audience, and how much money do you expect to make? And I said, I'd like it to be both the commercial chef and market and the home baker. And she said, you can have both, but you have to focus on one. So I said, if I just had one choice, it would be the home baker, because I want all the information to be in it, not realizing that people who went to culinary school were going to want that book because they didn't teach them to use baker cakes. But at any rate, when she said how much money, I said, I'd love to have a picture of every single cake. And she said, well, that would be a waste because you have all this text-heavy stuff and information. And I said, if you give me a picture on every page, I'll do it without any money at all. I told Bert Green, he almost had a heart attack. Think of all I would have lost, you know. He said, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. But luckily, Maria could not take advantage of me that way. So she persuaded me not to do that. And I got a higher royalty than you normally get because they never thought it would go into a second printing. So immediately it went into the higher amount before, I think, well, first of all, they only wanted to print, I just have to say this part because it's so interesting in book publishing, they only wanted to print, I think, 30,000, and no chain would take it for under 50. But one of the sales, the person who was in charge of Barnes & Noble, decided, and he wasn't a baker, realized what I'd done and decided that he would take the risk and put his job on the line. And he said, take this book and print 50,000, and that was and then Corby Kummer, who did the article, that was a two full pages, well, almost. The second page was 7/8 in the New York Times. That one day, the book sold 18,500 copies, which was the success of a novel in its entire life. I get the chills because it was like everything seemed hopeless, and then it just became recognized as something of value. Yeah.
We should tell that.
Pavarotti. Oh yeah, because I wanted to dedicate the chocolate cake. It's called the Domingo in the Cake Bible. I wanted to call it the chocolate Pavarotti because it just sounded good to me.
She's a big, huge opera lover.
And my great uncle Tibor Kozma from Hungary was a conductor, and so I went to Music and Art High School. So my friend June LaBelle, who was the hostess of WQXR, of course knew how to contact various people. So she said, write to Herbert Breslin. He's Pavarotti's impresario. So I wrote to him telling him about my uncle and about the tradition of naming things after opera singers. And he wrote back saying, I'm very sorry, but Mr. Pavarotti's on a diet. And he doesn't want to be involved. He doesn't want his name attached to any of this stuff. So I wrote back a second time, and I said, he sang under Tibor Kozma, and I'm sure that if he knew, he'd really want to do it. This time I didn't get an answer. So I thought, with him, I'm going to go to Domingo. So Domingo is a chocoholic. Yeah. So June said, don't tell them where you got his phone number from. And I brought the cake, and I was wearing my brown dress. Then I arrived. I've never been nervous because living in New York, you see a lot of famous people, but I was so nervous in the cab. I won't even tell you. Anyway, I got there, and he opens the door himself, and he said, what is this? And I said, it's the chocolate Domingo. Like, didn't somebody tell him I was coming? They'd completely forgotten because they were expecting the producer of the Cash on Phone. They were interviewing him as the possibility of being in the movie, so he was a lot more interested in that than he didn't know. So they were polite, and he said, he opened up the cover, and just the smell of the chocolate, just rose up. And he said, doesn't have a single calorie, does it? Anyway, they shooed me out because they were afraid the guy was going to come in. And I went to the movies because I was so hurt and I felt so bad. And then, when we had the party that I paid for, by the way, at Windows on the World that just reopened, unfortunately they didn't deliver the telegram until the next day. But I was on the phone being interviewed by somebody in San Francisco, and the bell rang, and there was the telegram from Domingo saying, now that I've tasted the chocolate Domingo, I'm so proud to have it named after me. Bravo, Placido Domingo. So I read this out loud to the interviewer from San Francisco, and he said, how can that be? He's right now in San Francisco. And I said, well, it actually was sent yesterday. He thought I made up the whole thing. That's framed next to the Condon Rose.
Right. Also, on your two-page spread.
Oh, yes, the best part.
This is the fun part. Okay. On the
At
two-page spread
the bottom,
of the
at
Cake
the bottom
Bible.
is Pavarotti raising a toast, it seems, to my recipes, but instead they say Pavarotti finally breaks diet. So this is not even the end. Pavarotti died, and I thought I really would love to dedicate the cake to him, and it was one in which I used white chocolate, so it gave a wonderful texture and it was
A
really
chocolate
special.
cake with white chocolate.
Yeah, plus I think I used the liquid good ganache where there's cayenne pepper and it sings in the mouth, and I thought the whole thing is appropriate. So I asked my lawyer, I said, how do you think I get the rights? And he said, the dead have no rights. So that's how the Pavarottis and the baking Bible. I'm really sorry because I think he would have loved it. And it's not like I loved one singer more than the other. I was thinking in terms of names. Next comes Renee Fleming. We both love Renee Fleming. And I wanted to dedicate this really exceptional lemon cake. Well, when I called, thanks to June Lavelle, and I got in touch with her agent or whatever, and she said, well, Renee loves cakes. And she'd really appreciate it, but not if you call it lemon. What's wrong with lemon? Lemon's my favorite flavor, even more than chocolate or caramel or vanilla. Then I realized that people use the word lemon that's so beloved to us bakers to mean something that's no good.
Yeah,
Right.
basically,
So I said, we'll call
yeah.
it the Renee Fleming.
Yeah, we don't want her name associating the title with her name as part of the title with lemon.
So when the
Hilarious.
book came out, we baked the cake for her, and we got tickets to the Merry Widow, and we were invited backstage to give it to her. So that was a really wonderful moment. And we put it on, of course, on Facebook and Instagram.
And on the blog.
Are we done with questions? Should we get to sign it? You have a question?
Sure he does.
For people who have to use alternative flours, is there any kind of a conversion table on the weights for those?
No, because alternative flowers are completely different, and I really like to recommend authors who specialize in it. Like Alice
Medrich.
Yeah,
Flavored
flavored flowers.
And she has a
You know, I made her
gluten-free.
tough brownies that were
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, if there's an
I'm trying to stick
alternative
in.
flour that can be used in the book, we say that.
Yeah.
We'll say cake flour or bleached bleached cake flour or bleached all-purpose to show the difference in volume, but because the weight's gonna be the same. But yeah, we get that asked a lot, because we get asked all the time. What can you do for gluten-free? What can you do for glycemic? And we just have to say that's really not our genre.
Although we have a lot of gluten-free recipes
Yeah, we do,
because
but
they don't need flour. I mean,
Yeah.
instead of replacing it, there are recipes that are wonderful without using flour.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite ones don't have flour
Yeah,
at all.
like the flour chocolate cake.
Yeah, the flourless cake roll.
So.
Can I ask one
Cheesecake
more question?
even.
I wanted to ask one more question. One of the things I really love about your books is you have like specialized indexes where you say like recipes with no eggs or with only egg whites or only egg yolks and so on. How did you come up with that idea, and could you please tell other authors to do it? Because it's so helpful. Like when you make something with a lot of egg whites, that you can find something easy to use those yolks
It's
on.
usually the opposite. And I try to do recipes where you use the yolks
right
for
next
one
to
thing
the-
and the whites for the other.
That's what makes those people.
Yeah, I
The
think
appendix section.
the way I came up with it was that a lot of people don't realize how well egg whites freeze. And even yolks, if you put sugar in, freeze well, but you have to label how much sugar you put in so you can take it out of the recipe. So I thought it would be really useful to see the things that where you use just one or the other.
Yeah, we.
And how
It's
much you
great.
put away.
Yeah, we
Oh, because one of the big things, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is so important, is that
You're interrupting me.
he's always like, can I talk now? You're not saying that with the right Italian accent. New York. Well, anyway, eggs. You'll see, especially with the egg yolk, that we give a range of sometimes like 6 to 11, or is it 7 to 11, because we've been noticing that the egg yolks keep getting smaller and smaller. And I finally got to the bottom of it, that the laying chickens are younger. So that means if you say 4 whole eggs, people are getting less yolk. And that really came to play in the genoise, because I made it for a wedding cake, a 12-inch genoise. I was just practicing for a friend because I wanted to make it really special. And it was coarse texture. And people have been reporting coarse. And it wasn't that it was lower, it was coarse. Well, the worst part was that it was
Of course,
coarse.
yeah.
Okay, so I called Lucy Okelson, and she said, yeah, what kind of cornstarch were you using? And I said, well, actually, it was not the genetic, it was the regular cornstarch.
Cardinal.
But also, she said she always adds 1 extra yolk to standard genoise. And I had a feeling, because that's the one sponge cake recipe where you don't divide the eggs. I would like to now, but I don't dare do that. So if we do the wedding cake book, which we will probably be doing, there where you're using
That'd be
so many eggs,
fantastic.
you just have to measure or preferably weigh them.
You have to wait a while.
Ice cream first, then weddings.
Could you do it before my daughter gets married next year, please?
Next
So
year.
use the cake Bible. I did that.
Books and heavenly cakes.
Yeah, Heavenly Cakes.
I know, I mean, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that white chocolate buttercream is really a dream to work with. The new one. Because the one in the cake Bible is set up so quickly, if people didn't work quickly.
No,
you've
that's
done that?
mostly.
No, I'm talking about the white chocolate buttercream. Where this is funny because the one with the cocoa butter is the one that sets up really quickly, but then there's the mineral oil version that I didn't realize mineral oil has other effects that if you eat too much of it.
Oh.
But it just works so perfectly in the buttercream. Yeah.
So spring 2020 is the ice cream book, and
Then I have no idea how long it takes to do it.
yeah,
Did you say spring of 2020?
For the ice cream.
yeah. Manuscripts been handed in, but now we have to go into the
Yeah, the whole.
yeah.
It's going to be
You know.
very challenging to do a wedding cake book because I've always felt a huge sense of responsibility that when people make something, because as I said, you can't tell by looking if something is wrong, that they're not disappointed because if it doesn't work, if the texture's wrong, the taste is awful. So think of it, you're making a wedding cake for yourself, for your relative, and it fails the night before 2 nights. So we have, not only are we going to proof it, we're going to test it many times to make sure that each one is perfect. And that was the benefit of doing these step-by-steps. We got to make the step-by-steps from the final recipe before it got into final print. Because after that, we had to make sure that what we wrote was what ends up in the book.
Okay, so we-
But we made sure by having to actually make it, we could tell if there was anything that we wanted to change. Whereas when a stylist does it, they don't have time. And they have to crank out all these cakes and one or recipes in
And
one
sometimes
day.
they don't tell you they had to doctor it a little bit.
Oh, the bane
They're pulled off.
of a professional recipe stylist is when the recipes don't work at all, and they have to create a recipe when they're selling the book. But Erin kept saying what a pleasure it was because everything worked for him. So we'd already done it all.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Rose and Woody, for spending time with us.
Well, thank you. What did I say?
I think Woody was doing just fine. But I like to be here. I was happy to be here. And I got to
And
make cookies.
we got treats too.
Yes.